25 years or so now, as a friend and a colleague. He's a rare animal. He loves salesmen, but he also loves the sales process. He's worked with 40 companies over the last 4 years, from billion-dollar companies to startups. He has unique insight into the sales process, and I will leave him to shine more light on that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that's really impressive. You know what? I wrote that for him, and he remembered every word. Yeah? I couldn't have done that. So before I start, who's in sales? Oh, really? Well, that's the first time, yeah, right? You know, normally I come here and it's aunties and uncles, yeah, right? You know, and they're anyway, yeah. I don't know how to follow up with Chris, yeah, right? You know, he's how do I come back with that? So, well, I'm a different style, yeah. I come at it from maybe a different direction and a different sort of process. And today, what I'm going to go through is how to monetize what Chris does. So, LinkedIn as a tool is in this window where you have an opportunity for the next 2 to 3 years that's probably going to change then at some point, yeah? Because it's going to get spammed and it's going to get bigger and people are not going to engage the way they do over the next couple of years. So if I was you, I would deeply be optimizing something, yeah, right, that is astoundingly cheap. How much is LinkedIn?
Free.
It's free. $1,200, yeah, right? You should have Navigator, yeah, right? You know, so he's right, yeah? Who's got Navigator? Good. Do you use it? Yeah? Every day, yeah? Fantastic, isn't it? Sometimes I hear people get Navigator, right, and then they don't use it. It doesn't really make sense to me. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about lead gen. I particularly love lead gen. I think it's the core of sales. I'm going to talk about sales conversion. One of the things I do is I teach people and I engage with salespeople. And the most common problems that I hear salespeople talk about are lead generation, structure of meetings, and time management. And it comes up again and again and again. So we've done lead generation there with Chris. A question, who sent out 100 connection requests this week? Only 3, yeah? Okay. Nearly, yeah, right. Does anybody know how long it takes or how many connection requests you can send in 30 minutes? Any idea? How many?
Unlimited.
No, there's a limit, right? I cannot press my finger so hard, right? How many? So my record's 921.
921 requests in 30 minutes?
Yeah, sent.
In a minute?
In 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah? I'm not going to tell you where I did it here, right? No, but, I love salespeople. I have a deep love for sales. My father's been in sales for 40 or 50 years. I think sales is very, very misunderstood in the world. And I've evolved into a career now over the last 4 or 5 years that has been wonderful for me because it's so interesting and so relatively untouched and not really it's not as sophisticated as people think it is. This was me about 2006. Reinvention is one of the core things that salespeople need to go through. They need to be changing and adapting. For me, I was in 2006, I was earning 20,000 Singapore dollars a year with a baby. And I did that for 12 years. So that's not very good as a salesperson. But I decided to make changes. And by 2013, I'd come 5th in the World Championships, the Triathlon World Championships for age group. At the same time, I generated $1 million of net revenue, and I only worked Tuesdays and Thursdays selling life insurance. So that's a big change. It's a big adaptation to the world, yeah, right? And I'm not going to go into why and how and the processes, but salespeople can do a lot more than you think they can. The problem is that most people don't know what salespeople are capable of. Does anybody know the average number of first meetings that salespeople do per week in Singapore?
5 to 10?
I would say
No.
less.
0.92.
Sorry?
First meetings with new clients, yeah? The average number over a year, right? You just take a look at your salespeople. You go back and you look at it, you'll be very surprised at how many new meetings are happening, yeah? As an average with your salespeople. I'm not talking about high performers here. I'm not talking about people that are good at what they do. They do 5, 10, 15 per week. But most salespeople are doing, on average, about 0.9 to 1 meeting per week with new clients, if you're lucky. Yeah? So today, look, selling's changed. As Chris is saying there, in the old days, it was all about control here. It's moved across to the ownership of the relationships is with the salesperson. Does that make sense? The salesperson owns the relationships. It's all about humanization. And that's a big, big thing, yeah? Anybody know Mark Roberge? CEO of HubSpot, took it 0 to 100 million in 4 years. He was a quant engineer, knew nothing about sales. But one of the things that he did as he built the HubSpot sales force is he kept analytics. And he did a regression analysis on what made a good salesperson based on interviews. And these things here, which you won't be able to read, but objection handling, convincing, needs identification, and closing had a direct correlation with failure. So closing ability had a direct correlation with failure. What people want and what was successful is preparation, adaptability, domain experience, intelligence, passion, prior success, brevity, and rapport building. Direct correlation with success. And that was the numbers, right? You can't really argue with that. Yeah, I mean, he kept the stats on it. And again, another study showed that before training and closing, transactions resulting in a sale 42%. After training and closing, transactions resulting in a sale 33%. So less sales after learning how to close. Client satisfaction. After closing, sellers trained, after learning, 5.2 out of 10 clients were happy with the salesperson. Before, 7.9. So the world doesn't want closers anymore. Closing doesn't work, okay? Now, obviously you've got to close the sale, because if you don't close the sale, you're not going to close any sales. So I'm not saying don't close, but what I'm saying is that sales should be a very natural, organic process where it makes sense for the customer to do business with you. You shouldn't have to use 24 closing techniques. Has anybody read the book 24 Closing Techniques? No? I read it. It never made me rich. Look, trust. Trust is at the core of selling. We very deeply embedded into trust and the trust formula, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. We need salespeople. 100 businesses in the US, 22 years later, 2015, only 19 and a half of them are left. An attrition rate of 80% over 22 years. We all know Kodak. What's Kodak famous for? Inventing the digital camera. And for me, selling's about process. You're supposed to laugh at my joke about Kodak here, right? They invented the digital camera, which bankrupted them, So lead gen, sales process, it's about process. Leads, nurture, book a meeting, do a first meeting, collaborate with a client, and then do a proposal, Sign the client up. That's a very nice sales process. It's very simple, and it works. Often I hear, in my culture, it doesn't work. I hear, in my industry, it's different. I hear that it's so commonly. I have clients that sell $500 million products and other clients that sell $150 a month products. It's the same process, okay? It's the same in Japan as it is in Indonesia, as it is in Malaysia. What it is salespeople love having reasons to do things differently so that we're not tracking them, not monitoring. They like that, So what's the glue? What's the thing that brings lead generation and meetings together? Anybody know? Metrics. We need to know our numbers. And I don't mean like 4 last week or 4 last year, first appointments each week. That's not a metric. That's a fake metric. It should be 4.1 or 4.6, right? Or 3.2, right? If you don't know your numbers at that level of detail, you've got a problem. Now, we all think that CRM is the answer. 80% of CRM is failing. It doesn't work, okay? Doesn't work. Okay, I had dinner with this is me name dropping, with the chairman of Volkswagen Audi Group, and he got very upset with CRM. He said, I have a 50% dysfunctionality within my CRM at the moment, Daily metrics, we should be tracking on a daily basis. Salespeople should know what they do. That helps them get better at what they do. We should know our numbers. And we should, more importantly, know our ratios. Selling is about ratios. How many first appointments of what quality create X at the end is what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the end result. I'm interested in what goes in at the beginning to create the end result. The end result's a byproduct. You sit down and you say to me, my target's $100 million this quarter. I want to know at what point 16 months ago you had to start the sales process. If you don't know that, then you're probably not going to hit your numbers. It's interesting because we live in this stupid world where sales is quarter by quarter because we have to report to our shareholders. But that creates a dysfunctionality that the sales process doesn't work properly. We should be in a sales process that lasts for 10 years. It should be an ongoing process where we are doing everything in each of the stages the right way. So, look, I'm going to talk to you about meetings because you want me to show you how to make sales, yeah, right? We can convert our revenue or convert our meetings into revenue. Let's get something in perspective though. That's a sales process: sourcing leads, generating, categorizing, nurturing meetings, first, seconds, thirds, onboarding, service delivery, CRM. It's very complicated. This is why salespeople fail. Because it's too complicated, they're doing too many things, they do too much crap, yeah, right? And they do things they shouldn't be doing that are not making money for the business. I'm dealing with a client, he gets paid $650,000 a year, right? He does his own lead gen. I don't understand it, yeah? What's the hourly rate for that? He's got to be the most expensive BD person in the world, you know? So, meeting types: account management, introductory meeting with existing client that you've never met them before. There's 15 different types of meetings there as well. It's not an easy job to do, but you need structure around every meeting. But let's talk about first meetings, because I can't cover everything, because I've got basically about 12 minutes, 15 minutes left, because Chris took all the time, yeah. So, and it's going to get really hot, yeah. That's the thanks, mate. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you about first meetings. There's two things that will get you 85% of your sales. First is lead generation and putting the right number of meetings, which I believe is 4 or 5 meetings, usually is a pretty good number that will give you a good stable platform. If your salespeople do 5 meetings per week, 50 weeks a year, 250 first meetings, they should do good business in the back of that. If your product is a low revenue product, they will have to do more. Right? If it's a higher revenue product, maybe they can do a little bit less. Any less than 3, though, creates a dysfunctionality because you don't have the volume there that gives you the confidence and gives you the spread and diversification of what you need. So what are the core tenets of a first meeting? A first meeting done right sets everything up for the rest of the sales cycle. Everything. You know? If you get it right and you nail it, but it's an extremely, extremely complex process if it's done properly. It's not like I go in there and I have a chat and it all goes well and then I come out and I've had a good meeting. That's not the way it works if it's done properly. I just cannot put this in. So I ask managers to go out with salespeople. What's the problem that I face when I ask them to give me feedback? They don't know what to give me feedback on. They go, that was a good meeting, had a very nice chat. I went with an auditor the other day, partner of a big audit firm, and I did a meeting with him, and he talked for 52 minutes before he asked a question. Right? And I said, why did you do that? And he said, because I want to let them know that I know what I'm talking about. That's not selling, okay? That's not the way the world works, but you'd be surprised at what people do and how they do it and the lack of structure. So, trust, listening, questioning, research, personality, process, data. Let's just quickly shoot through these. We all know that trust's about it. The trust equation is the key to selling. If you build up trust, you build up relationships, okay? It's not a given. People don't trust people, okay? There's stats there that show trust is not a given. You earn trust over time, yeah? You need listening skills. 80% of clients say the most important trait is listening. But you know, when I do role plays with people, they always say I'm good at listening. Always. And then when we do a role play, they go, oh, I wasn't very good actually. Because the common thing is that they'll ask a question and then ask another question about something else. That's not listening. The reason why we don't listen well, and people don't listen well, is the average person, if this makes a noise, I'm sorry, I couldn't get rid of it. Yeah? The average person talks at 125 words a minute, unless you're Scottish. And then it's a little bit more. Oh, it doesn't make a noise, that's good. Huh? We listen at 450 words a minute. And we think, how fast? Pardon?
Very slow.
No, there. 1,000 words plus, about 2,000 to 3,000 words a minute. So when someone's talking, what is someone else doing? Thinking. That's no good to you. I've never sat in a meeting with someone when they haven't been trained and seen them be quiet enough and ask the right questions. I've never seen it yet in 30 years of sales. People think they're good at this and they're not, yeah? If you can do a meeting and talk only for 3 to 4 minutes and at the end the client says, I want another meeting with you, that's when you know you're doing it right and you're good at this. So, questioning skills, we all know. I'm going to come to that. Research. Most people don't step into a meeting having done the research. It's for me, research is the backbone of the start of a meeting. I want a clear process. If I don't have process and I don't know where I am in a meeting, I can't assess what I'm doing and I can't assess how good I am. Data, you need your numbers. We all know it, yet I have not met a sales director who knows how many first meetings his salespeople have done over the last 3 months. Not one yet that knows the number like that, right? Yet that's one of your critical metrics. So what's missing from this? What's missing? Time. The time is important. Time is critical to everything, yeah? How much time you spend with someone is part of the process of trust, yeah? So, first meeting overview, and I'm going to shoot through this really quickly. I can't go as quick as Chris, yeah, right, you know, because it's just not going to work like that, yeah? But by the way, what's the purpose of the first meeting? Anybody know?
Build trust.
Build trust? You don't. You know you cannot say, right?
I was about to.
Anybody else know what the purpose of the first meeting is?
Understand what the customer needs.
Yeah.
To
Right.
establish how I can help
Yeah.
you and how you can help me.
Yeah.
Set up a second meeting.
Correct. Thank you. It's no good doing all of that stuff and having a wonderful time and a great chat and having no next meeting. The purpose of a first meeting is to get to a second meeting. And I know it sounds really gimmicky. I know it sounds stupid, yeah, right, and simple, but actually it's critical to the whole sales process. Right? Because we can have great meetings, but if they don't go to a second meeting, it's a complete waste of time, yeah? So, first meeting overview, research, rapport, statement, introduction, statement, past, present, future, presentation, summary, and book the next meeting. Okay? That's a flow of a first meeting, okay? And I'm going to break that down for you, obviously. But a first meeting is as complex as that. And I know where I am, and we know where we are when we're doing this. People that do high-performing salespeople know where they are in their sales process of that first meeting deeply. Yeah? Research is critical because when you step into a meeting, if you know who they are, you've researched their LinkedIn, you know who they know that you know what their industry does, you know what's going on in their industry, you know what's been happening, the conversation you have with them changes profoundly. If you don't know that, it changes profoundly. I stepped in a meeting with an Expedia HR person, pretty senior, right? Called me up, and I confidently went into the meeting, and I meant to do some research. I'm a bit last minute, and I have to confess, but I still do it, right? I was in the taxi, and the driver distracted me, driving crazy, right? And then I got in there, and she talked to me about stuff that if I'd done my usual research, I would have known about. And although the meeting went great, it could have gone better. We all make the mistake of not doing it properly. Yeah? So, rapport. Look, there's a book called Challenger Sales. It doesn't really believe in rapport, okay? I think that's profoundly wrong. I think people buy people. Okay, I haven't seen one industry yet where someone can step in there, engage in a sales process and not have a relationship with the person they're dealing with. Part of the trust formula is rapport and building up a relationship and understanding the person that you're dealing with. I don't think you have to go over the top, but I do think you need to build rapport. And that's about 9 minutes of your meeting. It shouldn't really be longer than that. Longer than that, what happens? No, they don't get bored. They have a great time, right? But you've got 10 minutes to go and you're trying to pack everything in, right? That's the problem. So there's two types of people. There's expressive people. They do really well and they build up rapport, but it goes too long. And then there's introverts who don't build up rapport. So introverts need to learn to build up rapport. There's a formula there for rapport, yeah? So first of all, be yourself. You should be comfortable with who you are. Number two, it's been proven that you live longer by being warm and kind, yeah? Proven, right? Scientifically. What's the highest determinant of whether you're engaged at work? Whether the manager is genuinely interested in you, or how stimulated you are, or your compensation package. Which do you think it is? It's not. It's about personal relationships. And I know everybody says Singaporeans jump jobs, but they jump jobs because nobody cares about them, you know? If you care about Singaporeans, then they are so loyal, it's unbelievable, you know? Don't go anywhere. Right? No, really, you've got to care. And I'm not saying artificially care. You've got to show that you care. Taking the time, yeah? You know, I sometimes I go into business and I know more about their salespeople than they know, you know? It doesn't make sense. I one client, you know, a rock climber, right? And they're all going, really, you're a rock, these are colleagues, he's a rock climber, yeah? It's his hobby. No one knows. So, ask clarifying questions and ask questions. When rapport, you're not asking questions that are going in a direction. You're asking questions to ensure that you understand them. Okay? It's all about questions. The whole thing is about questions. Look, you shouldn't be needy. These are funny pictures, right? So, needy is the most dangerous thing in sales. Does anybody know why? No? Because the client knows you're needy, right? So now you step into a different relationship than collaboration. I always want to be in collaboration, you know? I don't want to be needy. And needy comes from a variety of things. It comes from wanting the sale too much. It comes from making assumptions. It comes from being insecure. It comes from, you know, it comes from so many reasons, yeah, right? We have to be super conscious of it. Timing is everything. My 8-year-old loves this video. So, rapport. Now, how do you flip out of rapport? You flip out of rapport by using what we call a segue, all right? So, a segue is, do you mind if I tell you a little bit about myself? Okay? It's very sophisticated, it's very critical, and it changes the flow away from familiar to professional. Changes everything. It's unbelievable, right? It's like the whole conversation switches into business. Client says, yes, I don't mind you. So then you say, you know, 3 reasons, changes the flow, gets them to ask you, and keeps you in control. So then you introduce yourself. Now, does anybody know what the purpose of the introduction is? This is a trick question. Anybody know? To get to the next step. Okay? It's not to tell them how great you are. This is a mistake. Everyone wants to say, I'm fantastic here, right? You know? So the introduction should be interesting, general, with a little bit of a hook at the end, and then lead you to the next stage in the process. Okay? 30 seconds long, no more. Any longer than that, and it's pitchy. And then we move to segue, which takes you out of introduction and takes you into what we call past, present, future. That means understanding why the client does what they do, when they do it, how they do it, and what they're going to do going forward. This is where I'm trying to go in this meeting, yeah? So let me just shoot here. So I want to get a deeper understanding of the client by what have they done before? I'm curious, how have you used it? How and when did you start? And what do you like, yeah? et cetera, et cetera. So you should have a batch of questions there. If you're a salesperson and you understand why they bought what they bought in the past, what do you get? Pardon? You understand what they need, yeah, but you understand why they buy, right? You understand what they like, what they don't like. I know it's simple, right? But it's very, very effective. Questioning methodologies. My favorite is the hostage negotiation methodology. In a hostage negotiation situation, who's in control? Hostage taker or the person who's taker? The negotiator's in control, but there's one rule that goes with it, isn't there? What's the rule?
Let him think that he's in control.
No. What's the rule? Pardon?
Won't negotiate with hostages.
No. No. You need to know how to negotiate. Right? You cannot be in control if you don't know how to negotiate. How can you be in control? So the FBI went from a failure rate of about 40% to a success rate of about 98% in hostage negotiation when they rebuilt their model, which was all about questioning and listening. Has anybody read the book Never Split the Difference? No? You read it. It's good, right? It's amazing, huh? I have a daughter who's pretty dysfunctional, okay? She's like your 14-year-old nightmare. Didn't go to school for 4 months, wouldn't talk to us, stuck in her room. And someone said, read this book. So I read the book and I said to my wife, look, we're desperate here. I'm going to try this methodology of communicating and questioning. And so I said, Lillian, can you come through? We want to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And you know, 14-year-old, she's clever, right? She fight me every inch of the way. Anyway, I followed the process. And she sung like a songbird for 2 hours, yeah. And it was so amazing. I couldn't stop smiling. I kept going, yeah, right, you know. But it was interesting, yeah. I just followed the process. And the process is radio DJ voice. Okay? So there's 2 voices that you want to use, a playful voice and a radio DJ voice. Second is ask simple questions. The third is listen intently and actively. Mirror the last 3 words that they said. Pause and listen, don't say anything, and then repeat. And it was 2 hours of her telling me everything, yeah? And do you know what she said afterwards? She said, Daddy, that's the best conversation I ever had with you, you know? I never said anything, yeah? I never gave her an opinion. Nothing, yeah? Nothing at all, yeah? It was like mental. It was amazing, yeah? Changed my relationship with my 14-year-old. So it works, right? There's no doubt about it. And I'll tell you how I know it works, because my wife read the book but didn't really understand it. And she went through, and you're supposed to, at the end of when you repeat the last 3 words, you have an upward inflection, right? Which creates a question. So, but she didn't do that. And so my daughter kept saying, Mummy, why do you keep repeating what I say? So, deeper understanding. Now we step into a presentation. I don't mind a presentation at the right time, okay? Right? Because it's relevant. You understand them. You understand where they are. And I can put something across to them and say, this is how it looks. Okay? It allows me to go deeper with the client. And then we summarize. Do you like my picture? That's funny, isn't it? Yeah, summarize. I was getting a bit desperate. I was trying to think of something quirky, right? Summarizing is one of the most difficult skills because you've got to have paid attention, you've got to engage with them, but summarizing is critical, okay? Because summarizing helps you understand where your client's coming from and what they want, yeah? Okay? Because it's verifying information. Okay? And it leads very nicely in the next step. So it's been really great meeting you all. I know you're interested in lead generation because you're here, and I know that you're interested in sales processes. What I'd love to do is set up another meeting with you where we can talk about these 2 things. Is that okay? It's easy, right? And then finally, here's how to double your sales. 1 slide, how to double your sales. Book the next meeting. At the meeting. It's ridiculous. I can tell you right now, only 10 to 15% of salespeople do it. It's 100% increase in revenue, yeah? So, 7 meeting essentials. Trust, data, listening, questioning, research, personality, process. And what's the last one? Time. Okay, thank you.